Bring in James too. All right, recording's on. Fantastic. So for those that are new to this or watching in the recording, thank you and welcome. This is Asif's and I's AI Ask Me Anything. Really just kind of using this as a container to facilitate some meaningful conversations. I feel like for both of us, we've seen so many people have different approaches to AI, and just sometimes there's landmines there that we try to help mitigate in one way or another. And so we wanted to just kind of use this time and space as an open conversation to just explore what's happening in the AI landscape, what it's been like on the Microsoft side of the coin, and just, kind of see if we can collectively grow together through conversation. So I'll be pretty brief, but for those who have not met me, great to meet you. I'm Will Hawkins. I'm the CEO and founder of Rightway AI. We are a people-centered AI engineering firm specializing in the Microsoft AI stack. So we work with partners and customers to help them implement things like Microsoft Agent Framework, Azure AI Services, Foundry, Fabric, Copilot Studio. I've had a background in AI for the last 4 or 5 years now. Started as a data scientist, written a couple books on it. That's who I am professionally. On the personal side, I love skiing, snowboarding, traveling. All four of these pictures are taken from different places in Canada. So I've had the great pleasure of getting to move around quite a bit. And I'm excited to share my perspective on what things are like on my side of the pond.
All right. Well, thank you, Will. Will Hawkins is the main founder of this thing, so kudos to him. And thanks for having me. This I've been very impressed with this AMA, so let's partner together and do it together. So very much looking forward to doing these together with Will. Again, my name is Asif Rahmani. This QR code right there is what you can use if you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, and I'll be even more going forward. If you can go on the first bullet point here, I'll talk about myself a little bit. So yeah, there we go. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Visual SP. It's based out of Chicago, but we have customers everywhere. We're talking about a lot of North America, but also UK, also in Europe as well. And Visual SP, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the last bullet point also. But at the end of the day, it's very much based on getting your people to use the technology that your company is already paying for, specifically Dynamics, Copilot, Microsoft 365. We do that through our product and also through our services. So first bullet point here, I think maybe next time we'll just have all of it shown together. It'd be easier. Thanks so much, Will. I've been a Microsoft MVP for quite some time. This is my 21st year actually now, being a Microsoft MVP. And I love doing this kind of stuff, this and conferences and books and all kinds of stuff, just getting whatever I know out there. I don't know everything. None of us do, but sharing with others what I can do. Do that with my speaking assignments, conferences, AI strategy sessions with companies and stuff like that. I've also written books back in the day. 2007 was my first book that I wrote, SharePoint Designer, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, that product. But yeah, doing a lot of writing, a lot of videos and stuff like that. And the last bullet point, and I'll just shut up over here, is the product, like I was saying before, it's a digital adoption platform. At the end of the day, all the stuff we're building, I know many of us here are builders. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's just not worth anything unless people are using it, right? And that's what I focus on. That's what our company focuses on. How do you get people to use, in this case, Copilot or Microsoft 365 or Dynamics, just all this stuff like that. So looking forward to talking about AI, which is conquering our world. So let's go.
Apologize, okay. But I do kind of want to ask you guys, like, what do you think right now is where you think that people should be applying AI, and like is beyond productivity, obviously. And what I'm thinking more or less is like things like note-taking software and basic things like that. How are you then taking that and then applying it to like whatever else it is you're doing in your business? And that could come down to like people management or things like that as well.
That's an excellent question. I have thoughts. Asif, do you have anything you want to start with?
I feel very much that we don't want AI to, like Will was saying, take over or conquer everything that we're doing. So it's very much starting with subtraction than just addition. What I mean by that is there are things that I feel I've done and I've seen other people do which didn't need to be done to begin with. So there's no reason to automate stuff that did not need to be done just because now it's quote unquote easier. Because whenever you start with an agent, as all of us who have used it, you got to babysit that agent. You got to answer questions just like any junior worker. So you don't want to go down a route that doesn't pay off. Productivity obviously is a big, big thing, but at the end of the day, it's about what does that value add? Subtraction from the stuff that we don't need to add value to the things we really, really need. So a lot more focus, which I struggle with, I'll admit.
Yeah, it's a good point too, because I think we're now at a point where, with how far AI agents have advanced, it's never been easier to accrue technical debt because you can fire these things up in 5 minutes and they're insanely powerful.
That's right.
And can chew up tokens in a blink of an eye. I mean, the main thing I would say to kind of piggyback off of Asa's point, like subtraction is the answer. And I would say it's kind of coming from a different place in my mind. Like I kind of look at, and I've been doing this over the last probably 8 to 12 weeks. I go through everything that I spent time on. Like I'm not kidding. I literally clock every activity that I spend in a day and associate it to a different part of my organization. Am I spending time in sales and strategy or admin or whatever? And I'm looking at, okay, this stuff has to get done. Like, it's not like I'm just doing this for fun, but I'm probably not the best person to do it. So what are my options? And at that point, it's either going to be a human or a system. And so that's kind of where, I was going with the whole reduction thing, because I've been just looking at where are areas that I'm actually better off handing that to a system of agents because it's not my area of expertise, or it's not the, quote unquote best place to spend my time. Like I was having a conversation with another entrepreneur not too long ago about, I honestly don't think my business would have been able to be started without AI. Like I don't think if ChatGPT existed, I would have made it through building, legal stuff and contracts and writing posts and all this other stuff. So I'm like, I think it's a fundamental building piece of the organization. And so my approach now is just, what things do I actually want to spend time on? Because I have that privilege. I get to look at, these things are actually really fun for me to do and they bring me joy within the organization. And all this other stuff that I know that has to get done that I don't really want to do, frankly. What am I looking at in terms of options to offload that? Is it going to be an agent, or is this something that absolutely requires a human? Like I'm not going to have an agent running my entire, governance posture and security and, DLPs and everything like that. Like that's clearly a job for a human. But I can definitely look at and define like what are specifically the parts that require a human in the loop, and what are the parts that I could definitely look at passing off to an agent or creating a system around. So I know you got to run, but that's kind of my take. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But just a general principle that I think is super important is when you're interacting with an agent or with a co-pilot or an LLM of any kind, you can also add into your prompt what we call anti-patterns, which are things that the LLM is not going to be rewarded for. And it encourages it to unlearn that behavior. Like a good example that I think of is, LLMs are trained not by us, like by OpenAI or Claude or Grok or whatever. So we don't get to choose what they weight as valuable and what they weight as not valuable. And so most LLMs are going to be very verbose by nature. But if I want my LLM to be super succinct and to the point, because, I want it to be brief, but also I don't want it to eat up a bunch of tokens, I could add into my prompt, either in the system prompt or somewhere else, a kind of an anti-pattern to say, hey, I want you to unlearn the behavior of being very verbose with your replies, because that's not something you'll be rewarded for within this particular context of this task. So that's another option.
Love that.
To kind of break down within the prompt, because, LLMs are a little bit like dogs. You kind of have to train them to know what they're going to get rewarded for and what's in it for them. So that's another approach that you may want to try. I was listening to a clip from Jordan Peterson this morning, and I can't remember the exact line, but He was like, once you learn how to write, that's the most powerful skill you've ever learned. And I was like, this guy said this years ago, and this has never been more true. And I'm like, okay, so if I put more time into getting better at minimizing the gap between what I think and what's actually on the keyboard, that's only going to do me really good things.
What you're saying is English majors are the future.
Oh, absolutely.
The
Even though they
demand
hate
is.
AI, they think it's going to kill all their writing.
Yeah. That's so weird. Good stuff.
So, okay, so first one on the, like the coder identity side, version control. I mean, the main like root reason for that, that I at least believe is like in case something goes wrong, you can revert changes. And I was actually showing this to somebody earlier today. Like when I use a Git repository or an Azure DevOps repository or a Bitbucket, whatever you're using, the reason for that is more just change tracking than anything else. And so, anybody that's worked with Word or PowerPoint or anything where you're doing version control of some kind, it's a very similar concept. You're just kind of trying to build a lineage of the changes. And that actually became pretty valuable today. I was on a call with a client where we pushed a markdown file to their repository on July 10th. And then they made a new policy within the organization around LLMs doing deterministic checks of things, I think July 20th or something like that. And so we needed to be able to go back and look at the version history of the markdown file, which was the system prompt, to figure out, okay, if we version this back, like, what are we potentially losing? And then how are we able to adapt it to preserve what is working and then, bring in the delta of what we now need to change. So I don't think it's as scary as people make it out to be. Like, yes, there's different terminology like pushing, committing, pulling, and you definitely want to have the basics down to just kind of know what you're doing before you start clicking buttons. But it is nothing more than just kind of covering your own ass, for lack of a better expression. Does that kind of cover what you were thinking?
My lens of looking at all this stuff is from the user side of things. So you're not a coder. I used to be a coder myself a long time ago, but I'm not a coder anymore either myself. And I've thought about this very many times as to, do I want to get into vibe coding? Do I want to build enterprise applications? Now we have a team at Visual SP, so would not be the one doing it anyway, but let's say, should our people be doing it? And the question is always, when I was a junior developer back in the day, starting out with, I did Visual Basic 4, and then Visual Basic 5, ASP Classic, ASP.NET. I made a lot of crappy mistakes. I was a junior developer. I just made a lot of bad code in the beginning. So, and that's what's happening right now, where people who are vibe coding, and this is nothing against what you're doing, Bassam, but people who are, they don't know what they're doing. They're just prompting and believing that everything is correct. They get to a point where it's 80%, 90% correct, and they're like, yeah, and then I'll just make this tweak. And then AI pushes back, well, I can't do that, or messes something up that you already had. And now you're spending so much time just tweaking. And then someone tells, well, can you do that? And you're like, oh my God, this is not my job. That's not who I am. What am I doing here to begin with? And at the end of the day, the problems remain the same. What I was saying in my introduction, problem remains the same as to, will the users use what you have built? And if they get stuck, will they have support and training at the moment of their need? If they get stuck, how do you provide that? That remains and will always remain. So if you have a proliferation of now from 1 million apps to 1 billion apps, now there's 1 billion more problems maybe. At the end of the day, we got to think about the users and work backwards. What do they need? Will they have the support they need when they need it at the moment of need, and then work backwards as to what I want to build instead of just building too many things. So,
because I have friends who have suffered from this personally when it comes to the vibe coding era. It can be addictive. It can really be addictive because the gap between idea and something has never been smaller. And it can be kind of terrifying. Like I had a friend, I think he, spent like $1,000 to $2,000 in Azure spend, and he was like, I don't even know what I did. Like, I don't even know how I got there or what happened. And so I do think there's definitely real risks. And if somebody takes it upon themselves to learn some of those basic pro code pro coder thinking stuff. I wouldn't even say like personally, I never learned a syntax thing in Python. Like I couldn't tell you any names of the class. I frankly barely know what pandas does half the time, which is what like most Python scripts are made of. Absolutely. But I did learn the fundamentals of good coding, like, starting with flowcharts and pseudocode, understanding how to debug and troubleshoot. And those are things that we're going to do. We're still going to have a need to do, right? Like how many times have you seen a story come out where a coding agent got stuck in a loop of hallucination and it's just like pumping out bad code again and again and again? So there is still a need for those skill sets, which I think are worth exploring if you're really, into the vibe coding world, if that makes sense. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, in full transparency, I don't use Claude's asynchronous functionality because I've made my own. I actually use Windows Task Scheduler for some of my own stuff because it works for what I needed to. I think the main thing that I've learned from my own experience, at least, is you never start with, like, it doesn't matter if it's in Claude, you can do the same thing in Power Automate or pretty much anywhere. It's like, is this going to be a trigger-based or a chat-based interaction? And, most of the time why somebody would end up burning a lot of tokens or causing a lot of havoc is they haven't really thought through the middle part of that process. They know what should trigger it and what the output should be, but they actually haven't sat with the middle part of the process. Like I call it just basically an IPO framework, an input, process, and output framework. Because normally when I'm designing a new AI solution, I look at, okay, I know what I want on the outside. Like I know this is what I expect it to come out with as an output. Here's what I'm going to put in. So like all the magic's really happening in that process step. So what I've normally done is let me interact with the process manually until I'm like, this is so good. I don't even have to think about it. I can just backslash and it runs. If I'm like, boom, this is working like 5 out of 5 times. Now I should look at, can I schedule it and set it up on a trigger-based thing? Because I know there's going to be nothing wrong with the actual logic. It's more just going to be that shift into asynchronous trigger-based that I now need to look at. Okay, if this runs in the background at 3 a.m. and something happens, like what's my plan of mitigation, if that makes sense.
Like getting in the weeds with what's actually happening in the middle there after the trigger. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks. That's great.
A question comes to mind, Randy, and it's really good information, by the way, is the cost estimation is one of the biggest challenges for many organizations that I talk to. And some have actually built cost estimators at the individual level or the department level or organization or all. Just curious as to what are you guys doing for cost estimating so things don't get out of hand?
Completely pulled numbers out of our backside, to be honest with you. I mean, seriously. I mean, there's no good way to know. Yeah, but if you go out and monitor the usage, guys, and you can see what people are doing roughly, and then you go, okay, here's what I'm willing to deal with on a monthly basis in my budget. So let's cap it at whatever that number is, and then let's monitor it. And that's what we're doing. Fact is, I think it's next week, that group that I was telling you about, Section AI, they actually have a class and a session on AI tokens and how you budget for that and how you do different things. So I'm going to be kind of curious. We don't always take everything they say to heart because they're very, very hardcore. You're stupid if you're not doing these kinds of things, that kind of approach sometimes, especially with their owner. Their owner is pretty interesting.
Is that question is really better rephrased as like, do you want to host it yourself or do you want it to be hosted by somebody else? Right. And I think that's kind of the question of a lot of things in business is, are you willing to take the total cost of ownership? Like, are you going to be comfortable with maintaining the solution, with, doing all the squeaky wheel updates and things like that? Do you want to outsource that to another platform that really takes care of that? But then you face the trade-off of you don't necessarily have as much control. Like, for example, with Copilot Studio, it's a SaaS. So if they change something under the hood and you build something on top of it, you have no, as soon as you, change your update to it or whatever, you're kind of out of luck. That's been kind of handled on on their end. So I've personally always had a gravitation towards build stuff. It's why Claude was great for a bit, and ChatGPT and Copilot were great for a bit. But I was like, I literally have so many custom requirements. I need to make my own version of things, and I was okay with managing it myself. But that's, I guess, what the return question would be on my end is, how much of it do you want to own within your own organization, and how much are you okay with, having somebody else manage it for you?
Yeah, we're having fun with it.
Yeah. You're doing all the right things, I think, Randy. Best wishes to you. I've sent you a request on LinkedIn as well. Would love to connect.
Yeah, executive buy-in. I'm telling you, you can't.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't overstate that enough.
100%. That's where it all starts. Without that, as Will was saying in the chat, I'm extremely passionate about adoption. I do conference sessions all the time, and number one thing I say is that without executive adoption, you might as well give up right now. You're not gonna get anything. Forget digital transformation, AI transformation, whatever transformation. It's just not gonna happen. You got to get executive adoption first, executive buy-in first.
Couldn't agree more.
Awesome.
But yeah, we just appreciate you guys showing up with your thoughts. So if you do have any questions, I'm happy to stick around. I did want to just shamelessly plug, we have a webinar coming up this time next week for those that are in dynamic sales and service, working with the digital workforce that's being put in there. So Nancy and Tanya, super great in that space, and we'll have some really interesting thoughts. So if that's at all of interest to you, I can either find you the link or whatever. But yeah, any final thoughts, questions, comments, anything people want to get off their chest, given this is an AI therapy circle?